Hello everyone. So in this tutorial, I'll show you how you can get rid of the errors that occur, especially when you have overlapping objects in Fluent. I'll also show you some tips on how to detect what's causing an artifact and how you can fix that, especially when you're modeling. Sometimes it's difficult to fix the problem when you're done with the modeling, so just bear with me. So I'll leave the default cube, but I'll just deselect it, and let's press F to open up the Fluent object. But all I like doing is to just open up the tab and have it open right here, so I don't need to always press F. It's always fast, but I just prefer having the tool show up like this. So the first thing I'll do is to just go to creation mode and add a shape. So let's draw a nice large box kind of shape, and let's just select that and validate. Also, I like to turn on the cavity, set that to both. And one quick way to really check your edges is to make sure you have the wireframe selected. So if I select an object and I have the wireframe turned on, I'm going to see any wireframe. So let's add some detail to this face. So I'm going to go to the cut, and let's just cut a face like this. And I'll just go to the, I'll just validate that, right click again, and I'll go to the first bevel. I'll set it to, yeah, it's okay because we can actually see that error, but I kind of like using the straight cut. So this is an example of one kind of issue we have where you can actually see that we have these edges. So basically what's happening is if I click on the show boolean, we actually have a boolean object, which is this one that we have actually cut. I just turned on the x-ray so we could just look and see through the object. So this is the boolean object that we created. So if we lift this, we can actually see it separately. And if we just drag the cut down, Blender is trying to add a support because there's an overlap between this boolean object and the main object that we created. So one quick way to fix this kind of error where you have that support, edge, is to just make sure that your boolean objects have a support edge that passes through them. And to do that, we need to be in the edit mode to add that support. So let's quickly head over to the edit mode and click on the edge loop to add a loop cut. And let's actually go back here and select this object. Now go back to edit mode, and now we can see we're actually selecting this face right here, right? So there are two ways this can be done. So let's go back here, go to, and let's add this cut right here. So I'll just add this loop cut, and we have a loop cut at the center like so. And let's go to the toolbox and click on VG Cleaner. So we selected that face where the cut was overlapping, and we just added a support edge. And if we get rid of this view, we can actually see we don't have that supporting edge anymore. Now, a thing that also causes a lot of confusion is when we selected this object and we went to edit mode, we actually saw that it was a face. This is actually on this guy. We actually saw that that was a face. That's because Fluent adds modifiers to every object. If we go back to our object mode and just drag this a bit to the right, just drag this here, we can see that solidify. If I get rid of it, it's just a plane with a solidify modifier attached to it. So that's one way you can get rid of those funny and nasty edges you don't want to see. So there are support edges caused by overlapping. So I'll just show you another quick example using our cube. So let's bring back our cube. So this is a Blender object, and if we add a let's add a cut on this object, and I'll just cut this edge like so, this face, and we can see the same issue we're having right now. We're having these edges here. So what we need to do as well is to add a support edge on the object. So let's validate this. And to get rid of that, let's go to edit mode. Oops. Okay. I need to right click to validate that. So to get rid of this, edges here, let's click on this and let's go to our edit mode, click on our loop cut and add a cut. And if we get back to our object mode, we can actually see that face is gone. And the VG cleaner is a vertex group cleaner that cleans the vertices. So it actually adds a support edge, and when you use the VG cleaner, especially when you have a Fluent object, it will try as much as it can to kind of like solve that issue for you. So let's look at another example. Let's say you have a cut with multiple faces. Let's say I have this face right here. I'll just add a bevel to this object, and let's add another cut to say this face, like so. Just drag this here and make it a bit smooth, like that. And let's just validate that. So we have this object, this face. So let's add another cut here. So let's do a cut slash add, select this guy on this face, and let's add another, see, we have another cut like so. And let's add a first bevel. And let's, so we have this face right here, and we have another face. So if we open up our Boolean objects, we can see we clicked on show Booleans. So let's just turn this on just to see a bit through it. We can even do this one just to see our objects. So I turned off show Boolean, I turned on show Boolean, and we can actually see our Booleans. So if I click on this one, this is one Boolean object that's creating this face, right? And if I click on this one, that's another Boolean object that's creating this face as well, right? So to solve this kind of problem, we need to select the specific Boolean object where the face is. So for instance, this edge here that's showing this wireframe errors that needs the support edge is on this Boolean object. Because when we drag it up, we can actually see that that's disappearing, and when we pull it back up, we can see it. So the best way to solve this is to select the object, that's the Boolean itself. So I select this Boolean, and then we can add that edge loop. So I'll just go over to edge mode, and we can actually see that face. Remember, it's because we have a solidify object, that's why we're not seeing that. So let's add a support edge on this object, and with that edge selected, go to the toolbox and use the VG cleaner on this object. So next, let's select the other Boolean object, like this one, and let's do the same thing we did. So let's go over to edit mode. We have that face. So let's click on the loop cut, and let's add a cut to pass through the center of the object. And let's make sure we are still selected on that face. Go to the toolbox, use the VG cleaner so you can add a support edge to the object, like so. Let's select this object, go over to the edit mode, and we can add a support edge as well. So we can add, let's say this first solidify. So we don't have a Boolean object there, so it would just be a waste to add that edge. But basically, let's go ahead and click away. Now if we add it here or here, we're not really helping, but in case you want to have, other edges there, you can add these support edges just to make sure you have, an edge that can support your object. So let's still go back to edit mode, and let's add one support edge here. Let's click here and let's just drag this. Whoops, I think I selected the wrong object. Go to show Boolean, select this guy, So then we can actually see what's happening. We have this edge running up and then it's going down, up and down back on this Boolean object. That's why it's able to add that support edge on this object. Let's go to edit mode. We can add more edges, and let's go to the VG cleaner and apply this. So we can actually see we have this edge running through the object. So I'll just go back to object mode and let's exit from the wireframe mode. And I just want to select this shading. So basically we can see we've actually added our support edges, and it's gotten rid of those artifacts we're seeing on our object. So I'll just exit this mode so we can actually see it get rid of it. So basically it's when you're modeling and you begin to see some of those like lines over there, what you can always do is to make sure you add support edges to support those cuts or cut operations you create, so that you have a so that you have a nice I'm just trying to do one final one. Just want to add a cut here. We can actually see what's happening. So we added a cut here, and so let's validate this. So I'll just move in over this guy. So we see we added this cut here, but it's actually Blender is trying to look for a support edge. So what we can do when we validate this guy, we can see we have this issue here. So let's click on our show booleans, click on this object, and you can actually go to the X-ray mode. And what we can do is try and add a support edge on this object here. So let's go to edit mode and let's click on our loop cut. Let's add this loop cut here, and with the loop cut selected, let's go to the VG cleaner and let's just click out of there. And now you can see, we can actually see it's still there. So what we need to do is to add the support edge on this object right here, the main one. So let's go ahead and still do that as well. So let's go back to our edit mode. We can actually see it disappear. If we get rid of the first solidify, this is the object over here. So let's add an edge right here at the center, and with our object selected, let's go to the toolbox and click on the VG cleaner. Let's get our solidify back, and we can actually see that because of that support edge we added on the main object, it has gotten rid of that artifact that's caused by Blender due to the overlap. So I turned off the solidify, like I said earlier, just to easily see where that cut is going to be. If you turn it back on, it's going to just push that and radiate it around the object. So eventually, if I'm planning to add, say, a cut around here, this edge and this edge, what I should do is to make sure that I have a supporting edge here. If I get rid of the solidify and I go to my edit mode and I open up the loop cut, I could just add a nice loop cut here because I know I'm going to be cutting that edge in the future. So with this selected, and I'm just clicking on the move tool just to show you which edge I have selected, and it's already highlighted. So what we can do is to go to the toolbox and click on the VG cleaner, and let's open up our solidify. We can see we have a nice supporting edge already existing. So what I can do now is if I exit from this mode here, and I'll get out of this mode. So because I've already created a support edge here, You can actually see that if I add in an object, a cut around here, it already has this edge, so it's happy. So let's see that. So let's click on this. Let's go to cut add, and let's right click on this face, and let's just draw a nice little rectangle, and let's cut through, right click, validate, right click, first bevel, right click, validate. So we can actually see it's happy because that bevel is there. So what we can do is to select this guy. Let's go to show booleans, select this boolean object, then go to edit. I'm just going to right click and go to mirror and mirror this along the y-axis. And there you have it. So sorry, it's a very long, kind of like a long tutorial, but I just want to make sure I hammer the point and make you understand why we're having these those weird artifacts on these objects and how you can get rid of those artifacts. So hopefully you've learned a thing or two about the Fluent add-on, and I think I haven't added this, just a last extra tip. If you every Fluent object has a solidify modifier, and they're usually planes. So if I, like I said, if I click on this and I hide the solidify, click on this guy, I hide the first solidify. Now this is a Blender object. It doesn't have that solidify modifier, but this is basically what we've created, right? But let's turn on the solidify. You can actually see this guy over here. And we can just quickly add a plane, like so. This plane doesn't have any modifier attached to it, but if I go to add modifier and do a solidify, and I increase the thickness, basically this is what Fluent is doing. So this is a Blender object, not a Fluent object. So if I do anything here, if I just turn this off, this is going to be a plane actually. So if I add, say for instance, I go to edit mode and I add a loop cut here, and let me just open this up. So let's say I make this just two even loop cuts, kind of like keep them selected. Oh, there's no need to even do that. I just know that I have two loop cuts here on the object, and if I click on the solidify, we can actually see that goes through the object. Right, so we can click on this one and click on this one. There's no need to use the VG cleaner on Blender objects. So thanks very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next quick tip. And apologies for the length.